Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of the Grown Up Geek Cast. Still a working name in progress. We're looking for suggestions on how we can change that. Of course, as you can see, we haven't come up with anything clever yet, but that doesn't mean that you don't have an idea. If you do, please email us at podcast@thegrownupgeek.com so that we can get those suggestions and maybe use one of them. Anyway, this week we are talking about the news. I know that our first episode was pretty much dedicated to video games, but we don't want to get stuck in a rut with that, so we kind of expand out this time and talk about tech and games and TV and movies and a little bit of everything, which is more what we're trying to go for with this site. So this week it's Jared, myself, and Jason, who is going to be one of our regulars on our podcast. You might remember him from Pixel Perfect, but if not, that's okay because we don't really remember Pixel Perfect either. Also in this week's podcast, if you listen towards the end, we talk about some new developments over at the website. We are going to be starting a podcast book club of sorts. We go into more detail about it if you listen all the way through for details. But what's important is keep an eye on the website and on our social media, and we will be sure to put up posts about what book we're reading. But I don't want to keep you guys. The content is waiting after I'm done talking, so we'll keep this short and sweet and enjoy this week's podcast. Thanks.
Justin, why did you want to talk about the Xbox One compatibility list?
Because, well, like I was saying
because
earlier,
it's so small.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's so many titles on this list that I feel are such a waste of space for such a small list. So, you've got, what here? A Kingdom for Keflings, A World of Keflings, which are two games that nobody played when they were on the Xbox in the first place. Hexic HD.
Kingdom of Keflings, like a 360 launch title to no, when they updated the dashboard to have avatars, they released that game because you used your avatar in the game, and it was supposed to be this big thing that the only game that ever used it was a Kingdom of Keflings,
and nobody ever played it. But that's what I'm saying. So like those Hexic HD, N+,
which I actually have and love, but not an important enough game to be one of the, 10, I agree.
And I got N+ because you talked so much about it, and I liked it, but I never really got super into it. But, I mean, how many games on this list alone are already part of Rare Replay? Cameo, Viva Pinata, Trouble in Paradise, Banjo-Tooie, Banjo-Kazooie, all of those are part of Rare Replay.
I don't think the point of it is necessarily these are the games people love the most, so we're going to put them out. They might just be games that were the easiest to port or to get working, I mean, with whatever software they're using to actually do it.
Well, and Rare, was maybe already working on porting Xbox 360 games, and, that's why. I mean,
yeah, from what I know,
to blame for backwards compatibility at all.
From what I know, the actual Rare Replay uses that same exact thing. So when it's using the same software and everything to replay those games. It's not like they made those playable on Xbox One somehow, on the straight off the disc. It's kind of just it's just a way of saying, hey, this person owns this game now when they have the Rare Replay.
Oh no, what I'm saying is I wonder if it's like a chicken or an egg thing, whether Microsoft decided they wanted to do backwards compatibility, and that made the Rare Replay kind of a possibility, or if Rare was like, hey, we want to do this thing, and we've developed this emulator, and,
I think it's the former.
All right.
I'm just assuming.
I mean, I
don't know.
And I just scrolled down to look at the rumored titles. At least some of the rumored titles are games I would actually want to play, like BioShock and BioShock Infinite and Alan Wake.
Why are there rumored titles? All you could say is literally anything from the 360's backlog that's not a Kinect game.
Well, that's not true because Child of Eden is on the rumored list. And Child of Eden was absolutely a Kinect game.
I'm pretty sure the
Microsoft, Phil Spencer's already said it doesn't work with Kinect. He's already gone on record saying that the 360 games won't work with the new Kinect.
Well, what were you saying, Jason?
Oh, I think the rumored list comes from like some promotional video they had at E3 and just the games that they flashed in the background during the video. I think that's where the rumored list comes from.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's kind of dumb to have
Like
that.
it comes from nowhere. Who knows who made that video,
Right.
you know?
And the thing
Like
about this is that
yeah.
this is just going to be one of those things where Microsoft is going to lose interest, or they're going to stop doing this. They're going to port like 120 games or something, and then everyone who cared about playing like that one dumb 360 game that they were upset about that they couldn't play on their Xbox One is going to kind of get over it, and then they're just going to stop.
And as long as that happens after they do Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, then that's fine by me.
I mean, I think we'll see if it makes money. I don't know. Remakes and reboots and ports and all that have always bafflingly been huge money.
There's still one question that they haven't answered yet, or at least if they answered, I missed it. And that's, okay, great, your Xbox One can play these games, and if you already bought them digitally, you can just play them. But what if you didn't buy them digitally? If I buy, like, for example, I'm looking at the titles on the list that are actual, I mean, granted, these are all 360 titles, but I'm looking for titles that I would consider, like, real Xbox 360 releases. So you've got the Gears series, Mass Effect, Perfect Dark Zero. Those are games that, were like, whether or not they were any good, were actual, big releases, not downloadable, arcade titles, stuff like that. So, I'm just wondering, I go to the store, I pick up a copy of Gears of War 3, I put it in my Xbox One. Everything that they've been saying is it downloads to my system and then I can play it. So does that mean it's going to require the disc, or it's going to download a digital copy since it's all running through an emulator? Do I need to keep the disc? Can I give the disc to a friend and then they can download it too? I'm wondering how that's going to work.
There's a couple people I know that are already in the program, but they haven't done any of that stuff, so I don't know. They've only like done digital. They've played some of their digital download games, so I don't know. Everyone I've ever heard talk about, they're like, yeah, it seems to work, but they don't get into the specifics of it, whether you need the disc or not. But I don't.
I
don't
remember
know.
reading
I don't
somewhere
think it
that you can. I remember reading somewhere that you can use a disc, but I don't know if it's like they work like 360 games where you can just play it off the disc, or if it works like an Xbox One game where even if you have the disc in, you still have to install it and nonsense.
Well, I know that Jared and I, we're both members of the preview program, and I own Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie on my 360, so I thought that would mean it would be available for me to play on my Xbox One, but I haven't been able to find it. I don't think it is. Or maybe just because I'm part of the preview program doesn't necessarily mean I'm part of the backwards compatibility program.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. The preview program just gives you the ability that to be involved with certain updates, like special updates to the Xbox One, and included in that is the backwards compatibility thing. So at some point they might say, "Hey, you now are in this backwards compatibility thing."
Well, we'll see. I mean, I definitely agree with you in that it's a great thing because everybody wants what they can't have, but once they get what they want, they discover that it's not as good as what they thought it would be, and then it just sort of peters out. And we'll talk more about that when we talk more about the remakes and stuff in a little bit, because I've got a whole lot of opinion about that. Surprise, surprise.
I don't know if you guys saw, but like, I don't think this really matters much because people definitely aren't going out to buy more Xbox Ones because the PS4 MPD, like the MPDs came out recently, which obviously there's a lot of stuff that's left out of the MPDs, but it was showing like the PS4 is just like far and away just crushing the Xbox One in terms of sales. So I don't think it really matters that much. I mean, at least they're trying to right their wrong, I guess, and what some people see as a wrong, but doesn't seem to be helping.
It was definitely a fun announcement.
Late so much. I mean, it's not even like full backwards compatibility. It's like we've painted ourselves into a corner with this really sort of nice, downloading whatever kind of system, but in no way compatible with the old school disc-based, Like I like where Microsoft's head is at with trying to move to digital distribution, but I think that, where people have limited living room space and can only have, one or maybe two game consoles at a time, backwards compatibility is really important.
I don't think it's a selling point, though, necessarily. I agree with you. You definitely want to be able to condense down, especially considering the fact that, the whole point of this generation of systems was it's time for an update. But I don't know. I was certainly excited when they made the announcement, and I was like, this is going to be awesome. But then I remembered that, if there was still something I wanted to play on the Xbox 360, I would probably still own my Xbox 360, and I don't anymore. So,
right. Well, I don't know. I guess we'll see how it pans out, but I just don't think it's going to be that big of a hit. But I am looking forward to it being, I don't know, looking forward to see what games are going to be coming out for that. So, when you guys are hanging out on the internet, just checking out websites and stuff, that's what you do, I hear.
From time to time.
Yeah, what's the best porn website to go to? That's pretty big with kids these days.
Hashtag transitions.
Hashtag porn on the internet. Shut the fuck up.
Hashtag only for 18-year-olds. Kids, please don't.
Whatever you do, computer. Don't go to xhamster.com.
Yeah, well, don't, because there's a lot of crap you have to sort. It's not the best.
Jared's argument is don't, because then the bandwidth will go down and I have videos to watch.
Right, they're not all high quality, so.
Just like the porn on Pornhub.com, which I think is where he's trying to lead us to.
Oh, wait, I haven't had a chance to do this yet for this website. The views expressed on this podcast are not necessarily those of the... No, I'm not going to do it.
Nope, no. This doesn't matter. All the views expressed on this website are the views of everybody.
Yep.
We all agree on everything.
Everybody in the entire world agrees with us all the time.
So, Pornhub it doesn't really have anything to do with Pornhub other than that some users put it up there. So there was some footage shown at Gamescom recently, some footage of Fallout 4, and it was supposed to be exclusive to Gamescom. Bethesda has done this before. They did this with Doom back at QuakeCon, where they showed the new Doom gameplay off just to those QuakeCon attendees, and this was supposed to be just for Gamescom attendees. Some sleuthy man or woman, it was a man from what I gathered, but he
hashtag sexism.
He was a man. He's probably a man because only man plays video games. We know that, right, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say it's probably a man because only a man would watch an awesome, Bethesda whatever and go, "I need to put this on the internet."
And then where am I going to put it?
Why wouldn't
instead
a girl
of just enjoying it? But yes, where do you put it, Jared?
Because they don't know.
This is just another example of the patriarchy.
Well, it originally went. Originally went up on YouTube and other places, but they ended up putting it on Pornhub because who's going to go to Pornhub and file a DMCA takedown or whatever? No one, because who cares what's on Pornhub except for porn? So they put this leaked footage out there. It's about 7 minutes of gameplay. It's actually really terrible, so there's no real point in seeking it out. I guess if you're really hardcore into Fallout 4 and you have to see some footage of it where 2/3 of it is covered up by some other people's shoulders, then you can go check that out.
Well, I think that as of the 13th of August, there's an update out there. They pulled it off of Pornhub, and I don't know that
really?
From experience.
I'll find out right now. Safe search off.
But I do think that they pulled it down off of Pornhub. I just thought this was funny because I guess that's a creative way to avoid the video getting found out, because who would think to look there? But I bet you Pornhub friggin' loved it. I bet you they were like the influx of traffic.
I don't know, Justin. I'm pretty sure that porn website's doing okay without a little bit of video game footage.
I'm saying they're doing.
Sure, they have plenty of videos that draw more traffic than a Fallout 4.
Have you been on Pornhub? I think their collection is pretty nice without an addition.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that they were sitting around the office racking their brains, going, "Oh my God, nobody likes porn anymore. What are we gonna do?"
I'm just
tough times for porn.
I'm just saying that all of a sudden they had an influx of traffic. And I don't know how this. I don't know. Actually, Jason, you might. I don't know if you would even know from the legal standpoint. since Fallout 4 footage is not technically, I guess it is rated M. I don't know. I was going to say, I mean, because I bet you a bunch of kids
came to watch the video.
Here's the thing. First off, ratings like that don't have any legal weight to them. That's all industry self-policing.
But if a kid goes to Pornhub and they're there to watch porn, and then Pornhub, I mean, do they have some kind of deniability where they can be like, you know, we put up a warning that you had to be 18, so we can't get in trouble for...
That is the way the law of the internet works. Pretty much if you make people promise up, down, left, and right that they are 18 before they come in, yeah, you know, you're pretty good.
Well, the reason I'm asking is I just figured, you know, a bunch of kids probably went to the porn site to watch Fallout. No, a bunch of kids probably went to the porn site to watch porn and watch Fallout.
That doesn't happen.
Well, but here's what I'm saying, is you're saying it's a good place to put the video so that nobody notices it and tries to, you know, issue a takedown notice or whatever. But on the other hand, if you're putting it someplace well hidden, what's the point of putting it up at all? The whole point is to share it, right?
No, I don't think it's so much to be hidden from, because if you put it on YouTube, it's going to be taken down really quickly. But if you put it up on Pornhub, it's going to take a while. So I think it's more so that it's going to take a little while for anyone to get around to taking that down. So more people get to see it and download it or whatever before that happens.
Plus, they titled it Hidden Camera Shows Audience Teased by Big Butt Man in Tights Live.
Well, that's my biggest question about all of this is if you're someone who went to Pornhub not for Fallout, but for porn, and you're just like doing your porn thing, and you're like, oh, big butts, and then it's just...
Well,
I don't know if it was tagged under big butts.
No, it was. It's tagged under big ass, point of view, and homemade.
Oh, nice.
And they just never, come. The big butts, they never came.
They just never came. Haha.
You're watching the wrong stuff, Jason.
And the only comment that was on the video when the articles went out about it was, quote, came all over my monitor, end quote.
What? Who said that?
A person on the internet said a thing about a video.
Porn comments are the best, but we can talk about that another time. I do have a problem that they put the category in HD. That was definitely not HD, so that was mislabeling, and that was very dishonest.
Damn dishonest porn sites.
There are a couple places you can find this video. So there's like a Google Drive that someone's sharing that the video is uploaded on. It's really not worth watching. It's really uninteresting, so I don't see why it's that big of a deal. Even if they showed the full gameplay, I didn't see anything in there that's really... Like, why? I don't know why Bethesda cares about it getting out, because it wasn't anything we didn't see in the trailers.
How often does Jared say that about porn?
What?
It wasn't, I don't even know why they made this. It wasn't anything I didn't see in the trailer.
I never watched trailers.
Well, so number one, I mean, I think Bethesda wants to generate buzz, and I think in the days before YouTube, which Bethesda does reach back to, you know, you could control who saw videos when by playing them at events, but like, you know, the internet. And number two, I don't know, maybe this is sort of geek heresy to say so, but I don't know why people get all hot and bothered about these like little teaser peek videos. Like if it's a game I'm curious about and I'm not sure whether I'm gonna want it, like back before Dishonored came out, I wanted to see every little gameplay thing because I was trying to figure out what this game is about. You know you're gonna buy Fallout 4, so like, you know, just wait till they're done. I don't know.
Yeah, some people. I think it's mostly for younger people, because I know when I was younger, we didn't have a lot of videos, so it was a lot of screenshots. But, you know, I tried to like get my hands on any screenshot I could, and like when video came around, I remember before Halo 2 came out, I watched that Halo 2, the Halo 2 gameplay trailers, like the multiplayer stuff that they put out, because all I cared about was multiplayer. I probably watched those like 50 plus times. I would just watch those over and over and try to dissect every little bit of it. So I can get why some people might do that, but I feel like that's mostly little kids who aren't going to those websites because they're not 18. So don't worry about that, government.
Well, I guess also from the game maker's point of view, too, they want to, you know, if you just wait and then, hooray, our game's released, you're not doing a very good job of generating, like, word-of-mouth buzz.
Well, I mean, probably the best way to generate word of mouth buzz is to go on a podcast like we have here. Unless you're Chris Pranger, who works for Nintendo, who got fired for going on a podcast. Boom.
Yeah, that's a transition
Check
right
your
there.
policy before going on podcasts, especially sultry Pornhub podcasts like this one.
Oh, if only we were a Pornhub podcast. I'm going to start putting this podcast on Pornhub, so check that out. Subscribe to our Pornhub channel.
We're on iTunes, Stitcher, and Pornhub.
That'd be great.
Now geeks are sexy too.
Some. So Chris Pranger, he worked for localization on Nintendo games for Nintendo, and he went on a podcast recently called Part-Time Gamers to talk about during the course of the podcast he talked about some of his frustrations he has with localization, and he wasn't really directing it so much at Nintendo but mostly kind of at some of the way people view certain aspects about localization, kind of like the JRPG guys who are always, or people who are always, whining about, why didn't you bring this over? It's great Japanese art or whatever. You didn't bring that over to the United States. And he was basically saying, like, you don't understand. This doesn't make any money. That's why we don't do it. And because of that, because he went on there and talked about Nintendo at all, Nintendo fired him.
Yeah, the thing is, for all the things he talked about, he really never said anything negative about Nintendo, but I guess it ultimately doesn't matter because Nintendo has always been, like, very tight-lipped. Hey, look, we're back on Pornhub. No, just very tight-lipped about everything. You just don't...
That's a category I would never go to. That doesn't sound fun.
So it's six of one, half a dozen of the other, where I'm like, yeah, you probably should have just not done it or asked if you could do it, and then, when they said no, not did it. But at the same time, other than the things where he was like, it doesn't make money, that's why we don't do it, everything else he said was really positive about Nintendo. Like, one of the things was something like, the guy who makes Super Smash Brothers really loves Super Smash Brothers. Okay, well, I'm glad that I now know that because it's been keeping me up at night. And what's his name? Masahiro Sakurai, I think is his name.
If you say so.
So, just stuff like that. And it's just so harmless. It's so nothing that it just kills me to see that happen. But then at the same time, am I the only one that felt like his apology, his Facebook apology, was like it was very like stereotypically Japanese, and he's not Japanese, but it just felt like that Harry Carey kind of, I've shamed my family and my honor, and I was
the whole thing about like looking around, seeing images of his son and feeling such intense shame and crippling sadness. I was like, okay, you screwed up. It's like you didn't accidentally kill someone while drunk driving. It's like, settle down.
Right.
I think he was really just trying to get his job back.
Well, so here's my thing. I don't know. I agree with you guys. Like, no harm, no foul. Send out a big company-wide email. Don't even think about going on the media without talking to PR first, and they're gonna say no.
Yeah, I mean, he should have definitely checked with them beforehand. I think he realizes that now. I think that was very stupid. Like, Nintendo is, like Justin said, they're super secretive. No one has ever filmed in Nintendo headquarters except for Mega 64. They did a video this year, and they were the first people. Even their own employees haven't filmed inside Nintendo. They were the first ones to film within Nintendo headquarters, and they've talked about that after the fact, and how very specific about where they could film and where they couldn't film. He should have known, like, how secretive they are, that something like this was going to happen. And I can understand from Nintendo's standpoint, like, you have to set an example. Even though he didn't do anything, like, I don't think he said anything wrong. Like Justin said, most of the stuff he said was positive, and the few complaints he had was about not Nintendo. So I don't feel like that was an issue, but you have to make an example of him so that other people don't think that it's okay that they can then go out and, it slowly gets away from them.
Right.
And Nintendo was very straightforward. I mean, even the comment that they issued when Kotaku asked them for a comment, they were like, "We have no comment on this topic other than to wish him the best in his future endeavors."
Which I think is goes to totally support what Jared is saying. Like, I think, given that they're not trying to make it hard for him to get a new job. Like, I'm sure they're even writing him a nice reference, but you can't. Well, I guess the moral of the story is, if you're going to represent your employer in the media, even if it's just your buddy's podcast, ask your boss first.
And I'm sure he thought to some degree that it was like, well, it's such a small podcast and whatever. But I was talking about it with my wife, and I was like, even if a relatively new podcast like this one, where, we're still kind of trying to find our place and get our audience, if we got somebody from Nintendo on our podcast, given that everybody knows how secretive Nintendo is,
this one episode
we would blow up.
Yeah, this one, even if it's the only episode that ever blew up, this one episode would blow up. And they would get caught. I don't think I'm sure he thought, well, it's a small podcast. It's not a big deal. I don't think that's a thing,
Right. And how many other Nintendo employees do you see out there ever talking about their jobs? None. Like, no Nintendo employees are out there talking about their jobs in any context, really. So
I'm imagining, like, a Nintendo employee at home, over dinner with the family. How was work, honey? I can't say.
Yeah. There's just a Japanese guy standing right behind him.
Right.
You just see Mario, like, peeking through the window.
I saw one comment from Chris Pranger saying that he wasn't going to be able to find another job because of this, but I think that's ridiculous. I think most people in the industry are going to realize the way Nintendo is and understand, they'll probably listen to it, any future employers, and know what he said and be like, this isn't a big deal. We wouldn't care if you talked about this from our company. So I don't think he's going to have any problem finding a job. Localization is something that's very, very much needed in this industry, or in pretty much any industry. But
and I mean, you've certainly learned your lesson when it comes to going on podcasts.
Was it Capcom who put out that game? Crap, now I can't even remember what it was called. Where you were the guy that was dead, and then every time you got attacked, one of your limbs would fall off, but you couldn't die. Never Dead. Who made that game? Was that Capcom, or that was Capcom? Yeah, because Never Dead had some of the worst localization I had ever seen. Like, I'm pretty sure I was fighting a boss, and he was like, I am an apple, and you are a pear, and that makes us what? And like, that was like actually the line, and I was like, that doesn't even I can't even imagine what that line was in Japanese.
It was actually Konami who did that.
Oh, it was Konami.
Maybe it's an idiom?
Hey, no name calling on the podcast, please.
Oh, sorry.
That was a great joke. Yeah, it was Konami, and did you guys keep up at all with what happened with Konami? Like with that report that came out about how it's pretty much the worst company in the video game industry of all time.
I did not know about that, no.
Really? Wow. All this stuff after Kojima left, I won't get into it because I don't
know. Oh, I knew that.
Specifics.
Yeah, like the big fallout between them, but I didn't know that it was like then said that they're the worst company.
Oh no, like people were getting hired to be like programmers, and for whatever reason they say something or do something that a boss doesn't like, so they change them over, because Konami does more than video games. They like have their whole resort spas and stuff like that in Japan.
Oh yeah, so there are people who get hired as programmers and end up working as like servers at the resort.
Right. It's like there was one guy who someone left Konami, and on their Facebook wrote that they left Konami and went to this other game company, and someone who worked at Konami thumbs up that, like, hey, good for you. And that person got moved, like, from their art position. They were, like, I don't know if they were an art director or just making art, but they got moved down to, like, a hostess or something like that in one of their spas for that. So, and there's a lot of other horror stories about Konami, but they're pretty much the worst video game company ever.
I bet you EA is, like, throwing fucking parties.
Yeah. EA just puts out bad games. They don't really kill their employees.
I have never heard that they're like above average bad. I mean, I've heard that like basically every big, developer is not great to their employees, but
except for like maybe Valve.
Right.
Unless you're an employee of Destiny, specifically voice acting for a character named Ghost, and your name is Peter Dinklage.
Your segues are so spot on right now.
We just keep setting him up, and he keeps knocking them down.
I wrote all these down ahead of time. I have a huge list that I'm pulling from. So yeah, Peter Dinklage. Sorry, were you gonna?
No, I was just gonna say the preparation shows. I appreciate that you did your homework.
Thank you. It actually took me like 4 days to write all these scenarios down, just in case you guys brought up certain words. So I have this huge whiteboard here. So Peter Dinklage, he was removed from Destiny. He's being replaced. Yeah, he's being replaced by Peter.
Peter North.
By Peter.
I was gonna say Peter North.
Quit Pornhub, guys.
Too much time. The fact though, I didn't have to. All of you guys understood that reference, so that says a lot about all of us. Peter North is famous for other things, but Nolan North is famous for voice acting, and that's what he's doing on Destiny. He's replacing Peter Dinklage as Ghost. Does anyone here play Destiny or care about?
Not
this?
anymore.
I stopped right before the first DLC came out, and I kind of regret it. I mean, the DLC looks fun, and I always enjoyed Destiny. It just, they waited too long to release that first DLC, so it became very repetitive.
Tell me anything about the voice acting.
It's so bad.
Peter Dinklage wasn't great, but he was. The issue is that it just wasn't. Not every great actor, screen actor, will automatically translate to voice acting, and that's a big problem in the voice acting community in and of itself. That you have these great voice actors like Nolan North, who actually does some screen acting too, but like Nolan North, like Trey Barker, and some other ones that aren't quite as famous from video games, but do movies and TV and stuff, and they don't get half the roles they deserve because when they come out with these major Hollywood films, they want big names attached to it, so you get like Will Smith and Angelina Jolie and Ellen DeGeneres, who are good, but they're not voice actors. And I think that's sort of what happened with Peter Dinklage to a degree, is that, when the beta was out there, everybody was ragging on the it came from the moon line, and it became a big meme, and then they went back and re-recorded it, and it was very uninspired. And I don't know, I mean, it wasn't his voice acting that made it fun. It was calling him Dinklebot that made it fun,
Dude, tell me anything about the story. Like anything you learned from Ghost over the period of how many hours you played.
Well, that's the whole thing. There really wasn't much of a story.
Right, you're tapping into why I ended up not playing anymore. I realized I murdered countless aliens, and I had no idea why.
You couldn't live with that on your conscience?
I mean, I don't know. They're aliens, so I guess whatever. They're trying to kill me, so, kill or be killed. But I expect more out of, if you're going to demand that much of my free time, Destiny.
They should have just had North do it in the first place. I don't know why Dinklage was brought on anyway. Like, there's this, I'm sure it was like an Activision publisher thing.
I don't know. His voice was like, I think he was a good floating robot assistant voice. He just, whether he's a better screen actor than voice actor, or it was a test reel that, they never recorded over because of his busy Hollywood schedule, which sounds like an excuse to me, but whatever.
I think a big part of it
I liked him for the role. It just,
I think a big part of it was that they wanted that built-in audience of gamers who also watch Game of Thrones.
Right.
I mean,
I don't think that audience exists. Not the audience that plays and watches Game of Thrones. I don't think the audience exists where they're like, "Oh, Peter Dinklage is in this video game. I'm definitely going to throw down $60 to hear him be a robot voice." I don't think they exist.
I wasn't going to buy this game before.
Yeah. Like, they should have done North from the beginning, because Dinklage probably cost millions, and North cost, who knows, not much, comparatively. So,
Well, I mean, as far as voice actors go in video games, I'm pretty sure Nolan North is not cheap.
Yeah, but compared to Dinklage, I'm sure Dinklage could almost name his own price.
Yeah.
Well, we're not talking about like Tom Cruise as Dinklebot here. Like, let's.
I don't know. Dinklage is pretty big right now.
Can we please have Tom Cruise as Peter Dinklage as Dinklebot?
But while talking about Scientology.
Oh. And I just want to put this out there because this has been a thought that's been rattling around in my brain, and I'm never going to make an article out of it on the website, so I just want to put it out there. But I've begun to notice that there are a number of actors out there who look very much alike, and it's kind of unreal. Like, I've been watching
a little racist.
Yeah, I know. I've been watching a lot of Arrow, and the guy I can't even remember his name right now is John Barrowman. That's his name. Who played Harkness on Doctor Who, and he's one of the bad guys on Arrow. He and Tom Cruise are like dead lookalikes. And I bet you if anybody actually ever listens to this podcast, we'll probably get some nerd rage. But Captain Jack and Tom Cruise, it is uncanny how much they look alike. Like,
why would anybody be upset that you said two people look alike?
Because I guarantee you there's some Doctor Who fans out there that'd be like, they don't look anything alike.
We don't
Tom Cruise sucks.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is crazy. Captain Jack is awesome. Not that I don't like Captain Jack. I mean, I'm a big Doctor Who fan too, but it's just incredible how much John Barrowman and Tom Cruise look almost exactly alike. So,
are you saying all white men look alike to you?
Yes.
Jason Paris and John Barrowman and Tom Cruise and Jared Ryman all look alike.
I get that a lot, that I look like all of those people you just named. Speaking of names, the names have letters in them, and letters make up what we call the alphabet.
Why would you go for that when you could just said, speaking of names, Google changed names? Why would you go deep?
Look, that wasn't on my whiteboard. Okay?
Oh man.
Like you hit the surface and then you were like, I'm here, but I'm going to keep digging.
No, leave Microsoft Surface out of this. We're talking about Google. They changed their name to Alphabet.
It hurts. It hurts.
Well, they didn't change their name to Alphabet. Google didn't change names. What happened was Google said, hey, we got a lot of weird things going on, and then we got like serious business over here. We got weird experimental business over here. We don't want the two touching each other.
We've got business that doesn't make money yet over here.
Exactly. And they're mixing with each other, and we don't like that. So Google is now becoming a part of this parent company called Alphabet. So Larry Page and what's that other guy's name? Sergey Brin, the founders of Google, they are moving to the parent company of Alphabet, which is going to basically house a lot of their crazy, weird stuff, but also have Google. And then under Google, that's where all their actual money-making stuff exists. And Alphabet's everything.
Alphabet was just like a parent company, and then like they had all the crazy side projects were their own little companies, and Google is, Gmail and YouTube and...
No, Google's going to be everything that it currently is, search and maps and all that, YouTube.
Advertising, YouTube, yeah.
That's all Google, but then Alphabet is going to be the smart cities, the fiber internet, Google.
Separate companies under the Alphabet umbrella. I thought Alphabet was...
Well, no, Google's still under Alphabet. So Alphabet is the parent company, Google is under it, but everything else is also under Alphabet as well.
Right.
So, but Google then has all the maps, Android, YouTube, and so on. So under Alphabet is going to be Calico, which is their anti-aging biotech company, which I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, Google is they're trying to beat death. That's their goal. They want to find a way to keep humans from dying.
I feel like if there's a company that can do it, it's probably Google. So
they probably can just Google how to do it.
But yeah, no, not all their crazy. I mean, they have other stuff like Sidewalk and Nest, which, like Sidewalk focuses on smart cities. Nest is, everyone knows what Nest is by this time. It's that climate control thing that you can have in your house. So they're changing that around. I feel like it's weird that no other company has used the name Alphabet, because sometimes when you hear these names, it's so surprising. You would think that, why doesn't someone already have that name?
Well, speaking of somebody already having that name, see, look, I can do transitions too. Actually, there was a guy in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I'm from,
What's your address?
He actually has the Twitter handle @Alphabet, and it blew up when Google made this announcement. Like, Google's probably going to pay him a lot of money for that.
Actually, no. Twitter has, and they've done this in the past. If you can, it's kind of like with YouTube. If you can prove that you have a brand, they'll just give you it. So, like Rooster Teeth, they did this with one of their YouTube channels. They proved that, we have this brand, we've been using this. I can't remember what it was for, but someone else had the YouTube channel. So Google just got rid of them. I know these are two different companies, but they said, this is no longer a channel. We're giving it to Rooster Teeth. And I believe Twitter has done the same thing before.
Well, that's bullshit. I think you should, if you were smart enough to do it first. Now, granted, if it was the kind of thing where he was like, hey, I just heard about this and I rushed onto Twitter and I grabbed @Alphabet, that'd be one thing. But if there's evidence that you've had @Alphabet for like 7 years and now they want it, I think that should afford you some kind of protection.
I mean, at the same time, it's their company.
See, now you've got me, like, you're nerding me up in unexpected ways. The question is, I guess,
it's the sound of my voice.
Do you own your social media accounts? And
No.
Do you own the name? Do you have any kind of right to it, or is that just a service being provided 100% at the pleasure of Twitter or Instagram? And if it is in their business interest to give your account away to somebody else, not your like any videos or income streams or anything, but just your, like what if you have a small video blog thing that makes you, $100 a month, nothing big, but a little extra money, and then like Alphabet, some big company comes with this new name and pushes you off the internet. Is that what then? When it's not just your cat photos.
It's a question of legal property.
I think it is.
I mean, I won't claim to know anything about the law, but personally, I think if you're using someone else's business for your own business, and if they want to change their business in ways that affect you, that is totally up to them. That is totally their right. I don't want to use the word right, but they should be able to do that because it's their business. So if Twitter wants to take it away and give it to someone else, I think that's well within, or that should be well within their means to do so. And while I think it's a crappy thing to do, I'm not saying it's not. I'm still on the side of they should be able to do that.
Right, and I guess the market will decide if they start taking away too many people's accounts. Maybe people won't use Twitter as much.
Yeah, I don't foresee that being a thing. I mean, Twitter has kind of already fallen. Twitter's one of the most insane things because Twitter doesn't actually make money, but they has so many investors at this point. And it's like people are making money off of Twitter, but they're not actually making enough money it's weird because they're always losing money, but there's tons of people invested in it.
The thing that always baffled me about, go on, sorry.
I was going to say, aren't there a ton of like tech and especially internet companies like that where like it's some cool idea with a charismatic CEO and they get tons of investors and millions of dollars and like your Mark Zuckerberg, walks away a billionaire and then you're left with this massive company that isn't making a profit and never has.
Yeah, it's weird. Working in intangibles is always weird like that.
The thing that baffled me about Twitter, though, is that it's literally just Facebook stripped down to the most basic function. It's just tell us what you're doing in 140 characters or less. And yet it's so integral to an online company's business. Like, I guess I've never really understood the true purpose of Twitter. You tell me what you're doing, you have 140 characters to do it, and people can follow you. It seems like it works best for short-form comedians and customer service, and that's about it. But yet, it's so important to brands in general. I mean, I don't know, Facebook, because it's encompassed so much of what you can do online, I could see that sticking around, but if Twitter disappeared tomorrow, I don't think things would change very much.
I don't. If it completely went away tomorrow, something else would crop up and take its place. But I think it matters. I think there are a lot of people who really enjoy having it's kind of the nature of our society, unfortunately, where people don't want to actually read an article. They want to read a headline and get the gist of it. And so a tweet is kind of the same thing. 140 characters. Just tell me what's going on. Tell me what's trending. Michael Jackson died. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know the details. I just need to know the hashtag.
But that's inherently part of the problem in the information superhighway, is that you can read a headline and think you know the story and not know the story, and then disseminate that information. And then you're breeding this culture of people that are misinformed about how, they all think that bears eat twigs and dirt to stop up their butts before they hibernate. And that's patently incorrect. So
it's just,
and we want to go on record and say we do not support that theory. It's a theory. We don't know.
And we're sick and tired of people out there that are erroneously perpetuating that lie. There's one listener of this podcast who's really angry right now. Anyway, no, you just have this dissemination of incorrect information, and that's part of the problem with misinformation. But then when you condense that down to somebody's life, why would it? I don't know. I mean, I have a Twitter. I use my Twitter. I use it mostly to support the website, and the website has a Twitter. I do use it. I guess I just I've tried to just tweet like things that aren't stories or other website stories. I've tried to just get on there and be like, hey, I'm going to tweet a tweet. And never have I felt like I've accomplished anything in tweeting a tweet.
I think the stuff like social media really works for people who are desperate for attention, because this is why, like, I've been doing another podcast on the side for a long time. And one of the things we always talk about,
I knew you were cheating on me.
We make jokes about is that how we have a terrible social media. We're terrible at social media because none of us are desperate for attention. Like, we don't, which is funny because we do a podcast that we want people to listen to, but we don't really care if people listen to it, so it doesn't really help our numbers. But I think that's what that stuff exists for people who want other people to care about their opinions about whatever stupid thing is going on, or, who desperately want to know what, all the gossip or whatever is going on with their little circle. So I think that's who it mainly pertains to.
I guess, I'm certainly, I don't have to tell you guys, I am clearly desperate for attention, but, but I guess I don't value the social media thing. I don't know. I also don't post to Facebook that often. But that's the thing. I don't post to Facebook that often either. Like, I post to the website's Facebook, but I don't really post status updates on Facebook all that often.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm just not a status update guy. Maybe I just
bunch of baby pictures that beg to differ.
Well, yeah, that's baby pictures though. I have a daughter, and I like to post.
She loves social media.
But what I'm saying is there's still a difference there. I'm not posting like, I'm not going on Facebook and being like, hey, I made a grilled cheese sandwich, or hey, I went to the mall today, or hey, I'm not doing that. I used to when I'm
doing that, but teenagers. Like, I think Twitter and has sort of replaced aim away messages. It's just a message you can put out to any of your friends who care to look. I'm bored tonight.
If that were true, I would see more Twitters with like random lyrics from whatever stupid mood that person's in.
I don't know, how many teenagers do you follow on Twitter?
No, because like back in the AOL days, like everyone I knew would put lyrics of whatever dumb song
in
they
their away
to at
message.
The time. Yeah.
Have you not seen? I don't know, man. On Facebook, I see a lot of emo, like, meh.
I immediately remove anyone that posts anything like, this is my song of the day. I was like, you're my friend removal of the day.
So, well, and now you're saying I never see this, so it must not exist. But
well, no, I'm saying like, I was just making a joke.
We're venturing far off topic here, but the way that I go about removing people from Facebook is when I get my daily birthday updates. if you're not somebody that I would like pick up the phone and call and wish a happy birthday, I remove you. So happy birthday.
I was just making a joke about the AOL thing, just because when we were kids and stuff like that. Just how dumb kids were when we were younger, putting lyrics up.
And speaking of dumb kids from when we were younger, they didn't have smartphones, but the Samsung Galaxy Note 5 just came out.
Oh, see, I thought that was going to be the segue into remakes.
No.
And reboots.
I don't really have anything to say about the Galaxy Note 5. The only reason I put it in there is because I basically wanted to say it just looks like the iPhone 6, and cell phones are stupid. That's like my only contribution to that. I had really nothing of worth to say to that.
I mean, Apple and Samsung have been cheating off each other's notes on this whole smartphone thing for years now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean and they've also worked together from time to time, so it's really not surprising that the core design ends up mirroring one another after a while.
I'm just psyched that Samsung is finally going to put out a metal smartphone. I feel like the one thing that's in my mind held the Galaxy series back from being truly 100% iPhone competition is the kind of cheap plastic case.
But why do you need a metal phone?
What?
What benefit is there in a metal phone?
It feels like quality.
Right. I mean, it's largely an experiential thing. It just feels higher quality. I have no idea if there's an environmental difference, whether making all the plastic for the phones versus the metal, mining the metal for the phone cases is more green or whatever. I mean, smartphones are terrible for the environment either way. But no, I mean, yeah, for me, it's just like, I don't know. Also, I don't know if like a metal phone will maybe not break as quickly when you drop it. Everyone has phones.
The only thing this is the one thing that's bugged me about Apple phones from the beginning, and now is the case with Samsung. I loved my Galaxy S3 because the back came off, a new battery could be put in when the old one died, and it had removable SD cards, so I could expand the memory or replace the memory at will. I transitioned to the Droid Turbo, and I lost that, and it's something I really do miss, because phones that you can't take, smartphones that you can't take the back of and swap off the battery when it dies is just such a complete and utter design flaw. When you've got these info-lithium batteries burn out so quickly nowadays that to be able to just get a new battery and not have to replace the entire device I just think that's such a huge thing. You could sell the batteries at a premium and swap them out. And one of the selling points of the Galaxy line was the S4 and S5 actives were waterproof, and they got rid of that with the S5 Note. It's not, you lose all these things that were unique about the phone just to get a metal phone. I don't know. I don't see it.
Well, I agree that sacrificing the waterproofing for it doesn't make much sense to me, but I don't know. I've never thought the whole removable memory or removable battery was a big deal. Like I've had, I don't know, like 4 or 5 smartphones now, and only my most recent one has been a solid body phone. So I've had like 3 phones where with removable batteries and removable memory, I never swapped out my battery. I totally don't miss not being able to. I don't know. And I mean, also, like, the batteries burn out pretty quickly, but on average, you're replacing your phone around when the battery's burning out anyways. At least I find that I always.
But that's a culture that's dying out too. I mean, AT&T has basically gotten rid of the new every 2. Verizon just got rid of the new every 2. T-Mobile is.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't. I'm on Verizon, and they have every 2 years. They're still every 2 years. I'm on plans right now. I just got a new phone.
I'm telling you.
I'm telling you 100% that in 2 years I'm getting a new phone. And I just renewed my contract this month.
Well, there may be still people that are grandfathered in, and I'm
the Edge program that alone is a 2-year phone.
But have you not seen the stories that came out about what Verizon changed as of August 12th of this year?
Nah, I don't read that crap.
Yeah.
What did they change?
They changed the new every 2.
No,
you fucking
did.
asshole.
No, the Edge program is the new.
Well,
The Edge program is the new every 2. Do you have Verizon, Justin?
I do, but what I'm trying to tell you, Jason, what are you saying?
Oh, I have Verizon also. I think that's
Yeah.
a fun coincidence.
Yeah, and so do I. But what I'm telling you, and here, now I have to look it up while I'm
Okay.
telling you this.
But I'm telling you for a fact that the Edge program, which they just started not too long ago, like last year, that is a 2-year plan. And every 2 years you can get a new phone. Look up the Edge program if you're not familiar with it. But
And maybe that's Justin's point. You have to be on the special Edge program to get a new phone every 2 years, and otherwise it's not, guaranteed to be part of your plan anymore.
the only difference between the Edge program is that instead of paying one fee up front, you pay it monthly. And then at the end of the 2 years, you can choose to keep your phone and pay off whatever the remaining balance is, or you can just trade it in for a brand new phone and
Same
keep
monthly.
paying a little extra monthly.
Yeah.
So maybe you're talking about the upfront cost, Justin, but like the Edge program has not gone away. So I mean,
Yeah, basically, I'm reading the CNET article, and essentially they're doing away with contracts.
oh yeah,
Huh.
And it says here, can I keep my existing plan? Legacy plans are safe. And then it says, I'm on a contract and I have a free upgrade coming. Do these changes affect my upgrade? It says, every 2 years, Verizon offers existing contract customers the opportunity to upgrade with a $200 voucher to spend on whatever new smartphone they want. Verizon customers on contract plans will continue to get that perk as long as they stick with their original plan. But the people that are still on contract plans, it's going to get unneedingly expensive. And they're trying to force people onto this new kind of Edge style thing where you're buying. It's a monthly thing. It's not a yearly. It's no more long term 2-year contracts. It's these monthly data buckets.
it's still 2 years.
You can keep it for 2 years, but
It's still like the Edge program's way better. So just move over to that anyway.
long story short, new every 2 is not going to be working the way that it used to, at least in my understanding. I just like that. I was like, it's in this story. Did you read it? Like, I don't read that crap. What did it say?
Well, no, my point is like you were implying that every 2 years you can't get a new cell phone, which isn't accurate.
No, you can. It's just they're changing the model. I wasn't saying that you couldn't get a new cell phone anymore. But
Well, Justin, shut up.
Shut up.
Yeah, well, we're both right, but you're still wrong.
But you're still wrong. Exactly.
And speaking of being wrong, Jared.
Yes, wrong about radiation giving you superpowers, Justin.
Yes.
How does that? You read the article more in depth than I did, so go for it.
Well, actually, my wife read it and she told me about it, and I was like, oh.
That
So
is some
moving on.
excellent-
But no, basically, so if you've checked out our website at all, we have this article called Outside the Box where we ask questions and we try to find experts to answer them, things that you wouldn't normally think about. And one of them with the new Fantastic Four movie that came out and was like being given a high dose of radiation. They did this whole article on PBS about how these people get exposed to radioactive particles and they get superpowers as a result.
Did an article, and then the article is about a video. So Justin is telling us about something his wife told him about that she read about that's about a video.
Let me tell you what I think I read.
Well, no, I watched the first 30 seconds of the video, and apparently in the new Fantastic Four, they go to like an alternate dimension and get superpowers there. But they were like, but that's dumb. We want to do the original one, so we're going old school and we're doing radiation.
Which is more realistic.
Right. Well, I mean, the most interesting thing that leave it to scientists, that I would have never thought of is the scientist points out that even if the radiation did mutate your genes to turn you into the Human Torch, it would have to mutate every one of your trillions of cells in the exact same way at the exact same time.
Hey, on a long enough timeline.
Right. It'll happen eventually.
Yeah, you out there hanging out in radiation, keep at it. It'll eventually happen.
But also part of this was that they said that it's not possible. The levels of radiations that you would have to be exposed to would also likely kill you.
Oh, I missed that part.
But yeah, no. So kids, the short story here is don't expose yourself to radiation. You're not going to become Captain America or the Human Torch or any of that.
I feel like it's for the best, though. If you think that'll actually work, maybe you should just keep doing it. Because you're not the brightest bulb in the tree, so we'll let you be the experiment to see if it eventually happens.
You're not the brightest bulb in the bulb tree. But you know what Fantastic Four was?
Great. It was really good. It did really well in the box office. People loved it.
It was a reboot.
Oh, it was also a reboot, which is...
Oh, I get it.
Was it technically a reboot?
Yes.
Because there have been a million...
Yeah.
Did they change anything? Because a reboot
they went to an
implies
alternate dimension to get their superpowers.
Okay, so maybe it's more of a reimagining then.
It's all the same. Remakes, reboots, reimaginings, they're all the same.
I beg to differ.
Is that big of a deal to you?
I think they're all in the same category, but not the same. Anyway, just saying. Remakes and reboots are a huge thing right now, especially this year. I feel like there have been a ridiculous amount of things that have come out saying, "Hey, we're rebooting this. There's a Kickstarter for this thing. We're bringing this thing back that no one cares about anymore." Nostalgia is huge right now, so there's a few things.
Full generation for sure.
Yeah, I feel like this generation more than any other.
I think, and this is sort of one of the things I wanted to bring up, I think that, and I'm just off the top of my head counting things. So we've got, and these are some of the things we're going to talk about, but we had the Girl Meets World, Boy Meets World sequel, remake, reimagining, reboot, whatever you want to call it. There's this Fuller House thing coming out, which is the apparent Netflix-sponsored sequel to Full House. You've got a Xena reboot. You've got the X-Files reboot. Apparently Will Smith is working on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot. You've got the Jumanji remake, the Beetlejuice remake.
Beetlejuice is a sequel.
Oh, no, Beetlejuice is a sequel. You're right. And then you've got LeBron James supposedly working on a sequel to Space Jam. And I mean, the thing is, it's all well and good, but I think that it's just because our generation, this generation, the generation that's being pandered to in the media right now, primarily, is we're so fixated on nostalgia because the thing is, and maybe these are too broad sweeping of statements, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, the reason we're so hooked on what was because what was a good time. Like, we think back and we remember those times and we're like, oh man, I had a lot of fun as a kid. This was a lot of fun. It brings back happy memories. And compared to the realities right now, job market, economy, war, everything that's going on right now, I just think that, we're desperate for that sense of nostalgia back to a time when things didn't suck. But the problem is, because you can't really ever have, it's like the old saying, you can't go home again. You can't really have what you had because it's a moment frozen in time. And so that's why inherently all this stuff, I mean, nothing is ever as good as you think it's going to be. Oh, I forgot one. The Powerpuff Girls are getting rebooted. Did
you say Fresh Prince?
Yes.
Oh.
I did say Fresh Prince.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff is time and place. I don't think everything is necessarily time and place. I think some things had good formulas. I think, like Boy Meets World, for instance, that had a good formula. And if you watched Girl Meets World, it's like Michael Jacobs didn't understand what that formula was because that show sucks.
Well, no, he does. That's the thing. He understands what the formula was because he was the guy who made Boy Meets World. But the fact of the matter is,
that doesn't mean he understands it.
Boy
Meets World was made for a particular generation, ours, and Girl Meets World is pandering to that generation by saying, "Hey, Corey and Topanga are back." But the fact of the matter is, even if Girl Meets World was on ABC in prime time and not on the Disney Channel, it wouldn't last because as adults, we don't want to see Corey and Topanga existing in the same world that we're in and having the same troubles we are. We want to see funny, we want to see quirky, and the only way you're going to get that is to go back to children, and you're not going to get them as kids again, so they have to have a kid. That kid has to be the focus of the show, and primarily that show then has to appeal to kids, especially since it's, you know, being handled by Disney. So the adults that are watching the show are watching for Corey and Topanga, but what they don't understand is Corey and Topanga are supporting characters. You're not going to see much of them, and you have to be willing to tolerate life stories from a little girl, preteen, and try to relate to that, and you can't.
I think you've hit on the core problem with nostalgia, period, which is it's just something that we do because when you're a little kid, you watch kids shows and you're like, oh, this kid show is great. But I mean, as an adult, you go back and watch it. It's horrible. It's for kids, you know? So if you're trying to remake a kid show for the adult audience for nostalgia, you can either redo it for adults, which will ruin it because now it's not a fun, lighthearted kids show anymore, or you make it for kids and then your adult audience doesn't like it because it's for kids. You know, I mean, that's just the way that's why it's called nostalgia and not everything we used to make was better than what we make now. What's wrong with us as a species, guys?
I mean, go on.
I was just going to quickly say something to both of those things. As far as Girl Meets World, there's a podcast that Devin and I did on barelyrelevant.com if you want to check that out about Girl Meets World. But I don't think, for me, quick backstory on me, I don't give a crap about nostalgia. I'm not the type of person who's like, oh, I would love to get excited about these remakes. I don't care about that stuff. If I want to go experience it again, I'll go watch it again. It's not that big of a deal to me. So like seeing Girl Meets World with Corey and Topanga was actually, adding Corey and Topanga in there didn't mean anything to me. I just wanted that same formula, what they did with Boy Meets World, and just apply it. Even if it's kids, doesn't bother me. It was still a good formula, even that adults could watch Boy Meets World, or teenagers or whatever could watch Boy Meets World and still enjoy it. They just screwed up with Girl Meets World. But you can hear more detail of that on my other podcast. I forget what Jason said, but I was going to say something to him about that.
Jason, repeat everything you just said.
Just the nature of nostalgia, and we call it nostalgia, and not. We just keep getting worse and worse at pop culture, guys. What's wrong with us?
Oh yeah, I agree with that. But also at the same time, I don't think all those shows sucked when we were kids. I agree with the whole everyone's looking
just kids though.
Yeah, but I don't think everything, like the Wonder Years, like is something that you could watch, like all ages can watch and kind of identify with in some aspect. It had some,
and some shows had successful returns. Like, I mean, granted, they were a while ago, which is why they're not on anymore. But Ren and Stimpy came back as a primarily adult show, which wasn't a huge stretch because even as a kid's show, it was pretty close to being an adult show. But Ren and Stimpy came back designed exclusively for an adult audience, and it made it. So shows can come back, but I think part of the problem is
the reboot Beavis and Butthead was actually really good.
Yeah. And so some shows do make it, but like, for example, so one of the ones that was announced this week was the Xena reboot. And that's something that go on.
Xena, by the way, Xena was my Pornhub when I was a young boy.
Xena was everybody's, and so was Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman.
Well, that was harder to get it done, but I guess I can make it work.
With Lucy Lawless, returning to TV on a couple different shows and getting a lot of attention for it, everybody had been talking about a Xena reboot. And Xena was great, but the thing is, like, so they're going to make more episodes of Xena. It's not going to be what it used to be, but we want it because we want to harken back to the time of and how we felt during the time when Xena was first on. I mean, some shows will work better than others. I have the feeling the X-Files one will be insanely successful only because once the X-Files really got up and going, the X-Files was insanely successful, and that's one of those shows where the formula doesn't have to change much. But, Lucy Lawless is still a very attractive woman, don't get me wrong, but if she's not going to look the same, and
she's not going to play Xena.
Have they confirmed that?
I mean, in the article Jared sent us, they said she wasn't going to play Xena.
Okay, I missed that part. I thought that they said that she was playing Xena. I did not.
They said she might be involved, but they are, circumspect in saying to what extent, because they don't want Lucy Lawless's, presence, involvement to overshadow anything else about the show.
Then, and then even then, why?
She's definitely not going to be Xena if they don't want her to overshadow the show.
And then why even bother doing it? If she's not going to be Xena.
Because it wasn't like, I don't think like, yes, you think of Lucy Lawless, you think of Xena, but I don't think anyone's like, if it's not Lucy Lawless and Xena, then we're going to riot.
Well, no one's going to riot. Cares. No one's going to riot, but why even, but that's...
Who cares? Who cares? It was a fun, the action was stupid if you go back and watch it. It was ridiculous.
It was like a late 90s action TV show. They were all ridiculous.
Right, Renegade and
Hercules.
The Conan one, and Hercules and all that.
Hercules, Sinbad the Sailor.
The Adventures of Lois and Clark.
Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
The Cosby Show.
That was a different kind of dark action. What was I going to say? I don't remember. I don't think anyone cares. Like, if they make it a more modern, real, exciting, action-oriented show, I don't think people are going to care who is, like, Daredevil-esque. I don't think people are going to care who plays Xena. I don't think that's on anyone's radar as, like, we loved Xena as this character. It's not like she's this character that everyone loved. They just... I don't know anyone that ever felt that way. I've never heard or read anything on the internet where anyone's ever cared about Lucy Lawless in that way.
I never watched it myself, so I just don't know if it wasn't, like, actually just a really well-written show or something. But I always got the impression that people watched it because the character of Xena was fun, and the character of Xena was mostly fun because Lucy Lawless was, it was like, well, that too, but... kind of like, I guess with so many reboots now, it's hard to say, but, there used to be a time when specific actors were they were the character, and I feel like Xena and Lucy, like, if it's not Lucy Lawless, it's not Xena Warrior Princess. Like, no matter how you write the character, how you do it, it's not going to be that same magical intersection of the character and the way that particular actor chooses to portray the character.
I guess I don't equate her. Like, it's like if they tried to reboot I Love Lucy and someone else besides Lucille Ball, which would be hard to get her to do that now, but if they got someone else in place of her, it's like, that's not Lucy. Like, that's the way I look at it, and maybe some people look at Xena that way, so I don't know.
Right. That's kind of what I'm saying, like,
I don't think reboots or remakes... I don't think they never have a place in society. Sadly, our society is like a Buzzfeed society where they just want to read a top 30 list of all the things that 90s kids played with, toys growing up or whatever. But I think, like, with the Resident Evil 2 remake, a lot of Resident Evil fans, besides Resident Evil 4, of the traditional Resident Evils, they think that is one of the best Resident Evils. That's kind of what I've heard.
It is.
I've never played that one. That's the only Resident Evil that I've never played. But I think if that's considered the best one, it's more of a reimagining than a straight remake. So, kind of like the way Final Fantasy VII is going to be.
Yeah, I was going to say
it's
Final
not
Fantasy VII.
Yeah, it's not a 1-to-1. So you're allowing a new generation to re-experience. While it's not the same thing, so it's not the same exact game as before, they're getting to re-experience that, hopefully, if they do it, if they stay true to the source material, that it would be pretty accurate to the original experience. Then I think that's a good thing in that situation. It doesn't feel like a money grab.
Well, those ones don't feel like money grabs.
Put some work into it.
What's that?
He was saying that you put some work into it.
I agree. Yeah, when you actually put some work into your remake or reboot, like I honestly like reboots a lot because I kind of like, when it's done well. Even if it's just yet another, Spider-Man origin story. If it's done well, it's, it's a theme, it's a story, which in some ways gives the creator freedom to, explore new themes with it, new, what are the words I'm trying to use?
I don't know.
Well, like taking the Fantastic Four and going, well, what if they, went to a different dimension instead of being bombarded by radiation? Taking Spider-Man and saying, well, what if Peter Parker's web shooters are organic instead of, taking Batman and going, instead of going the Tim Burton-esque surreal route, I'm going to be gritty, I'm going to be, I just think when you're not trying to tell a new story and introduce your audience to new characters, when the audience kind of knows the score a little bit, it can free you up to do interesting things.
Sure.
You just
No,
have
I
to
definitely
actually
agree.
do interesting things.
I definitely agree with that. If they were actually doing new and interesting things with it, but there are some things that feel just like a money grab. Like, we're just bringing this back because superhero movies are big right now. Or I know Justin liked Pixels, but I haven't seen Pixels, so I can't say for sure, but everything I've heard about it, it feels like it's just like, hey, here's nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. People love that. You're going to go watch it, so I'm going to make money off of it. Like, that feels like a money grab.
Okay.
That's what,
most of this feels like a money grab. It just, the thing is, I'm going to end up watching all this, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'd still rather see a Xena reboot than Dr. Ken or this new Muppet show that's coming out.
Oh, I'm so excited for the Muppet Show. You shut your mouth. If it turns out to be bad, I'll take that back. But you shut your mouth. I'm so excited.
What could possibly be good about that new Muppet Show?
Everything, because
Can
Muppets
you
are
expand
fantastic.
and explain what it is?
Well, the new Muppet Show. You do it. You do it because I'm gonna be super negative about it.
Okay, so the new Muppet Show. All I know about it, I've only seen one or two commercials, but it's going to be a primetime, sort of modern sitcom style. So it's not going to be like the Muppet Show where it's a variety show. It's going to be
wait.
The Muppets.
Are we talking
live.
about the Muppet Show or Sesame Street? Because we said Sesame Street before.
No, we're talking about Muppets now. I mean, they're all Muppets, but we're talking about
pre-podcast we said Sesame Street, so all right.
No, we're talking about the Kermit and Miss Piggy and all of them.
Yeah. No, I'm just making sure. I'm just saying because pre-podcast we said Sesame Street.
Right. So the Muppets are getting a show in the vein of The Office or Modern Family, where it's sort of handy-cam style with documentary style interviews.
Kermit looks at the camera.
It takes place behind the scenes of the Muppet Show.
Right.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Right. I think it sounds like it could be hilarious.
No, it's an excuse to take the Muppets and make them do inappropriate jokes. And that just, to me, is uncreative. And the Muppets are supposed to be
I don't know.
for everybody. And, I mean, the fact that in order to make this show work, they had to do and in order to make the show work, one of the first things they had to do was hold a press conference where they said that Miss Piggy and Kermit are officially 100% broken up and not getting back together, because one of the running jokes in the show is that Kermit is now dating another pig. And so they do that to make the joke, and they make it in the commercial where he says he has a type. He clearly has a type. And it's just why mess with one of the core things from what the Muppets are, just to be able to make a cheap joke about Kermit having a type? It just, I don't know. It just boggles my mind that. I mean, this is the same thing I said about Dr. Ken, the sitcom that exists solely because everybody knows one fun fact about Ken Jeong, that he used to be a doctor. So they decided to make a family comedy about it. Why?
Well, I don't feel that's a little stretch to equate those two things. I think the Muppets, watching the Muppets, they've always kind of teetered on some adult leaning jokes. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch. It's not like Sesame Street and Elmo's out there shooting people and buying drugs or something. It's like
the
Muppet.
Yet, at least.
Yeah, no, it's not like they've taken Sesame Street and did that, but the Muppets, I feel like a lot of the stuff has kind of teetered on some of those more adult humor elements in the past. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch to have them doing this, and I don't think it's like Miss Piggy's going to be getting out her boobs or anything like that. It's not going to be super crazy adult. There's not going to be a sex scene or anything.
Well, one of the scenes in the commercial preview talks about how Fozzie is dating a human.
Oh, yeah.
And it's this whole skit, not a skit, obviously, but it is a skit because it's just one small segment of the show where the girl's parents are asking her if they think that it's a good idea that she's dating a bear. And the whole running gag, the whole thing is, how do you two even do it? Can you even do it? And it's like,
do they explicitly say that, or
more or less? I mean, if you watch the clip, it's one of the questions that comes up, and it's just like, why does that have to become part of what the Muppets are? Why do we have to wonder how Fozzie Bear and a human being have sex? Why is that the humor that we need to go through with the Muppets now? And I don't have I mean, I am in no way, like prudish about this shit. I get sex jokes are funny, and I watch.
You certainly sound like it right now.
I
Now look, I understand that your penis and vagina shenanigans can cause humor to human bots. However,
no, I mean, here's the thing. I watch as many crude movies as the next person, and I laugh at the shit on Pornhub. But I just don't understand why this franchise needed it. Because what made it funny, and Jared, you're right, they always did have those wink, wink, nod, nod movements, but almost every children's show has that because they know that the parents are watching with the kids, and there's an art to it, and when it's done correctly, it's really well done. This is they're throwing the art to the wind and saying, why do wink, wink, nudge, nudge? Let's just make the whole show just for adults.
You're really inferring a lot of stuff here, though. Like, we haven't seen the show. I'll agree with you. There is an art to hiding that adult humor in these kids shows. I definitely agree with that. I think that is something that's kind of been lost in this day and age. But we haven't seen the show yet, so we don't know how explicit it's going to be. I don't think there's going to be jokes where it's going to be that explicit and raunchy, where there's going to be like awkward sex scenes or anything like that.
No, there's not going to be anything raunchy, but it's not going to be a show you want to say, hey, 5-year-old Jimmy, these are the Muppets. Come watch the Muppets.
Because 5-year-old Jimmy...
Time show.
Exactly, but what about the Muppets that the reason we liked the Muppets growing up was because they were for kids, and we liked them because we were kids.
They were always a family thing. Like the Muppets, when they initially came out, it was the Muppet Show, which was a primetime variety show aimed at families.
The reason we liked anything when we were kids is because we're stupid and we don't know any better. Like, we didn't know... How many things did you watch that were adult shows that weren't for kids when you were a kid? I watched a ton of stuff like that.
I watched
I didn't know any better.
And I didn't understand a minute of it.
Yeah, so I don't think there's nothing that all needs
to
be
I would have the same problem if they were bringing back MacGyver and making it an early morning, kids show on how to build things with stuff around your house. I would say, that's not who MacGyver is. That's not the audience he was meant for. Why are we wasting our time? And so that's the same argument I'm making. So yes, the Muppets were made for the family. But this show is not for the family. You couldn't watch this with your whole family.
Well, screw your family.
And the Muppets are... And then...
How do you know you couldn't watch it with your family? You've seen one commercial.
That is the foot that they are putting forward in that commercial.
I think I'm going to have to agree with Jared that you're clutching your pearls a little prematurely.
That's a Pornhub joke.
I agree that they could easily screw this up. But I don't think we've seen enough to really say one way or the other. I think it could be really interesting.
But that's the other thing. I think they're sending a contrasting message because there's been 2 very successful recent Muppet movies that were aimed at the family. And there are kids that saw those movies that are going to want to see this show. And I have a feeling it's going to be a different enough experience that it's going to hurt the potential for another movie, which is where the Muppets really excel, is in their movies, I personally think, because they just wanted the opportunity to make a not family themed. I won't call it adult themed, because every time I say adult themed, you guys think I mean raunchy sex scenes and nudity. I'm speaking much more specifically to age and not to content. But this Muppet show that is not aimed at families. It's not a family-themed Muppet Show.
Well, I don't want to get into the argument about.
I'd also like to take this opportunity to talk about my new book, Jesus Loves Me and You, and don't have sex.
Not to get into the argue about definition versus family and adult, but I think when you say it's family, that implies that there's stuff for everyone. And I think in this adult version of it, or whatever you want to call it, I was gonna say Family Matters, of the Muppets, is that they're just focusing on the more adult aspects of that family show from before.
Also, they need
right,
to
but I don't think it's going to be like, Fozzie Bear picks up a heroin problem and,
If not, then I'm uninterested. I don't know. The Muppets, I still land on the side of all kids are stupid to some extent when it comes to this stuff because they don't have any idea. So they could still make a nice kiddie Muppet show and make like a raunchy, dirty, porn riddled show on HBO or Showtime or whatever. And it wouldn't matter. It's not like parents are going to be like, I'm not going to let my kids watch the clean version of this. I mean, there'll be some parents out there, but those parents are crazy. So who cares about them? That's how I run a business.
And I mean, I'm certainly not. I guess the point is, I just am I have a very specific vision of the Muppets that I grew up with and that I enjoyed, and that this isn't that.
Well, that doesn't take away from it.
Therefore, I shake my fist at the sky and yell at clouds to get off my lawn.
Exactly, but no, but I also
I also feel like to a degree that it's just it's one of those shows where it's like, why are we? But much like a lot of these remakes and reboots and revisitations and reimaginings, it's just like, why?
Oh, no, I agree. The question is always why for most of these.
Hopefully the why is because it's going to be hilarious.
Well, yeah, but like, why not something new? Why not another interesting? Why not a different thing that has Muppet-like creatures in it that they could turn into a...
Oh, they're rebooting Fraggle Rock.
I was about to just make a joke about Fraggle Rock.
Yeah.
I think this comes back around to the point we made about reboots, like well-done reboots before. Why the Muppets? Why not something original? Well, you can sink half of your development costs into coming up with completely new puppets, completely new characters, completely new relationships between the characters. Or you can take this set of puppets that's, well, okay, I can work with this. And then you can focus all your time and money into making it good,
Oh, sure. No, I definitely agree. It's much less of a money sink to go into a known property rather than launching a new IP. I mean, we've learned that especially with the gaming industry.
Right.
Yeah. Fraggle Rock is being made into a live-action movie starring and produced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt's involved. I don't know. I mean,
everything's live action, even like the Dozers and stuff?
All I know is it's live action, which I think it means it's going to be puppets and people, as opposed to puppets and animation.
That's fine. It looks like we've solved all the industry's issues when it comes to reboots and remakes. Listen to us. We've got the answers. So this was the second episode of the Grown Up.
And we never actually talked about Sesame Street moving to HBO.
What?
And we never actually talked about Sesame Street moving to HBO, other than to talk about how we wanted to talk about it. I think that's a win.
Wait, what? I'm so confused now. So I thought we were talking about the Muppets.
We were just doing wrap up, and I remembered before. Not only did we talk about talking about Sesame Street, but then you interrupted us talking about the Muppets to go, wait, weren't we going to talk about Sesame Street?
No, my confusion was I thought in the pre-show we were talking about the Sesame Street going to HBO, but you guys just said Sesame Street by accident, and then you meant to say the Muppets later on.
Jared, you were the one that brought that up.
I know, I brought that up because pre-show we were talking about Sesame Street going to HBO. I thought you guys screwed up at the beginning in pre-show.
Muppets is going to be like NBC or something.
Okay, see, that's my confusion. I thought the Muppets was going to be on HBO now.
I'm so confused. No. This needs to be sorted out.
This is all recorded, so
this needs to be sorted out. What I remember is that you told us, Jared told us.
No, that was Jason who told us about Sesame Street.
It was. Oh. It was Jason.
Okay, I thought Jared told us, and that's why I was like, why are you so confused? You told us the story.
Oh, shoot. Well, let's talk about Sesame Street real quick.
Yeah, Sesame Street is now going to be a sexy show.
I mean, I don't know about that, but it's going to be half. I think what I read was it's going to be
Oh
half
my
an
god,
hour.
I sound incredibly brutish. It's going to be a sexy show.
And I don't know. Elmo is he's going to be the mountain, and there's going to be a significant. Well, but here's a question though. Sesame Street does all those like celebrity cameos and stuff. Does that mean that now it's going to be like HBO crossovers? Like, is
I
Cersei going to be on an episode of Sesame Street?
Well, you know they did a House of Cards ripoff on Sesame Street.
Which was awesome.
Yeah. Who knows?
So wait, what are they changing about Sesame Street when it goes to HBO? Like, why is it going to HBO?
I don't know. I mean, all I read was that it's going to be half-hour shows. They're going to air on HBO first, but they're still going to come to PBS eventually.
I mean, maybe PBS just can't cover and HBO's willing to or something. I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, Sesame Street is it's got to be an expensive show to produce. All the puppets, all the actors. You know, it's original. A lot of original content. And like their writing staff has like, you know, child development specialists and whatnot.
Yeah, it basically just says that the change will allow the financially challenged Sesame Workshop to significantly increase production of the show.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's a financial thing.
Yeah.
But it's not so the delay is that for 9 months you will only be able to watch Sesame Street on HBO.
For how long?
9 months.
Oh wow.
And then the shows will be available for free on PBS at that point. But for 9 months, it will strictly be on HBO.
I wonder how many parents are going to pick up HBO just so their kids can watch that.
Right.
I mean, considering how important
Just pick up HBO Go, since you can now purchase that separately.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, I can't.
Hold on, I can't read.
No, I'm just trying to see because somebody actually said specifically that, like, you know, we understand that Sesame Street needs the money, but it's kids that are going to be squeezed in the middle for this because they're going to lose if they can't afford HBO, they're going to lose Sesame Street.
I mean, hey, Sesame Street is totally awesome, but let's not freak out like we're taking our kids out of school because they're not going to have Sesame Street.
Right. Again, it comes back to kids are dumb. Just put something else in front of them. They'll be okay.
PBSkids.org will still stream 4 episodes of Sesame Street at a time.
Sick.
You can kids will still be able to get it. I mean, it's definitely interesting and it's definitely a juxtaposition to the other content that HBO offers because I can't think of a single kids program.
Real sex.
Oh, HBO totally has kids programs. I mean, I don't know if they do anymore. I remember like back in high school when I was still living with the parents and like.
I had to sort through so many kids programs to get to the porn.
Well, no, in the morning, HBO and Showtime and all that had like, you know, Harold and the Purple Crayon and shows like kids, legit kids shows. I don't know who is, you know, turning on HBO instead of like, you know, PBS for Sesame Street or whatever, but totally, I don't know if they phased out kids shows and are trying to get back into it. Or they just have always had kids shows, and I haven't had an HBO subscription for a pretty long time. But no, believe it or not, kids shows are like an old school part of the subscription premium movie service model.
There are only 2 shows that are currently off the air that I would like to see be brought back, and one of them, because we're talking about PBS, is
Mind of Mencia.
Mind of Mencia. No, one of them, because we're talking about PBS, is the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego game show.
Talk
And
about
Legends of the
nostalgia.
Hidden Temple.
And the other is Legends of the Hidden Temple. You're right.
Really?
Yeah.
I would love that.
That show was awesome. It's true.
Because one show has the potential to still teach kids about geography, whether or not it's the same cast, whether or not they have rockapella, so on and so forth. And the other is just encourages kids to exercise and teaches them fake stories about history. So,
well, and to work together and all that crap and get cool
and
silver monkeys or whatever.
And what is D. Bradley Baker really doing right now that he couldn't come back to be Olmec?
Actually, they're talking about a possible Nickelodeon arcade reboot as well.
Nice.
Why? There are no arcade games anymore.
Justin, video games are cool.
Games on that show either.
Yeah, I know. A lot of those were. Well, they did have real games.
No, those were real. They're like Monsters in My Pocket and stuff like that. Yeah, they were.
I don't believe you.
They absolutely were.
I never once saw a game from Nick Arcade in my actual local arcade.
Your arcade sucks.
Apparently.
They should bring back Guts as well. Aggro Crag, come on.
Oh, who doesn't love the Aggro Crag?
I know. I tried to buy. Someone was selling one of the statues or trophies that you win of the Aggro Crag on eBay, and I was bidding on that for a while, but it got pretty expensive.
So here's two questions. Number one, if Michelle Obama really wants to cut down on childhood obesity, shouldn't she be pushing a reboot of Guts? And number two, I want to see the numbers on when America's childhood obesity rates started exploding and when Legends of the Hidden Temple and Wild and Crazy Kids and Guts went off the air.
And Double Dare?
And Double, because the physical challenge, they were all about not real sports, but still athleticism.
And whether you won or lost, you got a pair of fucking moon shoes. And who can't exercise in moon shoes?
Jason, I think that's the best question that probably anybody has asked of a politician or someone in the political space ever. Michelle Obama, you say you don't want kids to be fat, but why did you let Guts get canceled, huh? What are you even doing?
Yeah, what are Mike O'Malley and Mo doing now? Why can't you just get them back?
Real quick, before we wrap it up here, did anybody have anything else they wanted to talk about real quick? Just anything they saw, played, whatever? Anything they wanted to mention?
I've just been insanely plugging away at Batman Arkham Knight. I'm now on my, so that's all I've been really playing. And I finally got around to reading Ready Player One, which I thought was pretty good. I know, Jared, you really didn't like it, and Jason is going to read it. But
I just read it. I just finished the last book I wanted to read, and I was noodling around with some free Kindle or whatever. So I'm excited to get into it.
What was the last book you read?
So I think it's called The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. It's if you guys are at all familiar with the Mistborn trilogy, it's a pretty good fantasy trilogy. And the author decided to pick up again with the world some 300 years after the events of the original trilogy. And it's interesting because it maintains a similar setting, but with 300 years of technological advancement. And, all of the characters of the original trilogy are all legendary heroic figures in the 300 years in the future. And it's interesting because those characters really well, and how their legacies play out into as the society developed. And I don't know, I mean, I didn't think it was quite as good as the original trilogy, but it is the first book out of 3 planned ones, so I'm still waiting to see. It was a good read, it was a quick read, but in a good way, page turner. And the threads for the story through the next 2 books, I'm interested to see where it goes.
I feel like that little bit that you just said perfectly encapsulated our entire conversation about reboots and remakes. Because that book sounds like it's a reboot or a reimagining of a series. Okay, well, we did what we had to do, and now let's jump to the future and continue.
And it's the same author, which is what makes it interesting. It's like doing fan fiction of your own. Well, I guess Gene Roddenberry did the same thing. He made Star Trek, and then he made Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you'll like Ready Player One. I don't know.
I haven't read Ready Player One. I just only read a little bit of it, and I didn't like it. So who knows? I might read it at some point. Did you want to talk about book? I have one thing I want to talk about real quick, but did you want to mention book club in this podcast?
I mean, yeah, something to keep your eyes out for on the website and your ears out for. We're going to be starting a book club style podcast. There's a lot of great, and like Jason just brought up sounds like a good kind of geek read style book, but I had never heard of it, and so that just goes to show you. I mean, there's a lot of books out there for us geeks that are great and that may go unnoticed. So we wanted to start kind of like a monthly book club, and we're gonna pick a book each month, and we're gonna announce it. The first one will be announced on our social media, and then over the course of the month, we'll read it, and you can send in your comments and questions and thoughts and stuff like that. And then hopefully the goal will be at the end of each month, we'll record a podcast with the author of the book, if possible. If we can't get the author, it'll just be us, but, a group of us that have read the book, and we'll take your questions and we'll read your comments. And at the end of that podcast, we'll release the next book, the next title that we're going to read. And that'll just sort of be kind of a cool way to keep in touch with our audience, and you guys can feel involved. And if you ever had a question for an author of a book that maybe you've read or that you haven't read yet, you'll be able to ask the author that question, hopefully, if we pick your questions out of the ones that are submitted to us. So it's an experiment. We'll see how it goes, but keep your eyes peeled to our social media for that kind of stuff. I guess I'll just announce it here too. For September, our book is going to be Armada by Ernest Cline, actually the same guy who wrote Ready Player One. It's his second book. So if you've read Armada, you can read it again. If you recently read it, you can just submit questions, comments, thoughts, and that kind of stuff, to thegrownupgeeks@gmail.com. Just make sure you put in the subject line, book club Armada, just so we know, that's what it's for. But that's what we're going to be doing. So we hope you guys will participate. That'll be really cool. But that's about it.
Yeah, so that's cool. Email us stuff or whatever. I wanted to talk about real quick, this little application game thing for those who have smartphones out there. There's this game called Lifeline, and it's sort of like a choose your own adventure game, or book, but it's a little bit different. So it's about this person who has crash landed. Their ship has crash landed on some foreign planet, and they're sending out a distress signal, and you get the signal, and it's all text based. So the name of the character is Taylor, who's the person who's lost out on this planet. You don't really, I haven't finished it. I don't know if there's one ending or multiple endings, but you are receiving these transmissions from Taylor. I think of Taylor as a girl, but I guess it could be a guy. It doesn't explicitly say that it's a girl, but in my mind,
Jared's very lonely.
Yeah, a real pretty lady who's really into me. And it's pretty cool. Like, what happens is she'll say something, and then eventually it might come to a point where it asks you for an option, and you can choose one of two options. For example, one time she wanted to know, should I go sleep by this generator at night, or should I go out and sleep in this other area? And I get to choose. And what happens is you choose something, and then it'll say, like, it'll go through some dialogue, and then eventually it'll say Taylor is busy. So it's something where you play a little bit of it, you hang up your phone, and then you might come back to your phone an hour later and look at it, and you got a notification. It says, like, Taylor is waiting for you, or Taylor has responded, or something like that. And so you just pull it down, you read some lines, and then you can either respond to it, or it's her just saying a few things, and then it goes to Taylor is busy again. She's like, I see this off in the distance, I'm going to go check it out, I'll get back to you in a little bit. And then it says she's busy. So you're kind of, the writing's very good, and it feels like, it almost feels like a real transmission from somebody, because sometimes I'm getting into it at work where I'm just like standing in the bathroom for a little bit longer than I need to be, because I'm reading and I want to find out what's going on with Taylor before I actually get back to work. And it's really cool. It's like $1.39 on Android and the iOS store. So I highly recommend it. It's called Lifeline. it's pretty passive. The nice thing is that you're able to read a little bit, maybe choose a decision, and then just put it away. So you can't, I mean, that could be a downside for someone who wants to sit and just play continuously, but I like it because I just get a little snippet of it. I do something, Taylor goes away, does her thing, and then comes back to me when she needs me.
I feel like my patience would run dry pretty quickly. I would just be like, I don't care, Taylor. Go sleep next to the damn generator.
To like sit down and have necessarily like a deep 2-hour gaming session, but to have something that like is always there to help you out a little bit when you're like waiting for an elevator or, you know, something like that.
Well, it's nice just to see like a notification that's like, hey, Taylor is waiting for a response from you. And it's something very simple where sometimes you respond, sometimes you don't respond. And it's not a ton of text, so you're not sitting there reading for a long amount of time. And it's not like you can shut your phone off in the middle of a conversation. It's not going to hurt anything. It's really cool. And you can argue whether it's a game or not, but shut up.
Yeah.
It's a cool application for your phone. So anyway, this was the second episode of the Grown Up Geek podcast, working title.
Please help us come up with a name.
Or we might come up with one eventually, but if you have any questions or comments or responses, email podcast@thegrownupgeek.com. If you have any cool topics you want us to talk about, you want to hear our opinion on something related to anything geeky, then send it to podcast@thegrownupgeek.com. If you want to check us out, you can go to thegrownupgeek.com. All the links to our social media are on the website there, so you can do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, that's exactly what I just did. That was the end.
Yeah.
So this is over. This is over.
We're done.
Shut it off. Shut it down.